Terror in Tennessee. 4 Marines killed as a gunman opens fire on a Chattanooga recruitment center. Free exercise. Some members of Congress work to strengthen religious liberty protections in federal law. Hillary losing ground. A new poll shows half of all Americans surveyed have a negative opinion of Mrs. Clinton. And Asians on ice. South Korean hockey players aim for the Olympics with help from some NHL pros. Those stories and more on EWTN News Nightly for Thursday, July 16th, 2015. Good evening from Washington. Thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Brian Patrick with your news now. It is being called an act of domestic terrorism in broad daylight in the heart of America. 4 Marines are killed in a barrage of gunfire targeting 2 Tennessee military facilities. The suspect, 24-year-old Mohammed Yusuf Abdulaziz, is believed to have been born in Kuwait.
Today is a nightmare for the city of Chattanooga. Around 11 o'clock this morning, we had someone viciously attack at 2 different locations people who proudly serve our country.
The suspect, believed to be the lone gunman, was also killed. A soldier and police officer were wounded in the attack.
Well, I had gotten a call about 5 minutes after the shooting had taken place, and I just understood that someone drove by, shot all through the windows of all the recruiting offices. So we went inside, and the place was like something on TV. Furniture shot up, TVs, walls, bullet holes all in them.
On the U.S. Senate floor here in Washington, both senators from Tennessee expressed sorrow and offered prayers.
My thoughts and prayers are with all those involved.
Senator Bob Corker, the former mayor of Chattanooga, added his prayers. And of course, the other big story we continue following is the building momentum to defund Planned Parenthood. This after a shocking undercover video implicates the abortion provider in harvesting and selling of organs from aborted babies. David Daleiden is behind the undercover video that everybody's talking about. He joins us from our EWTN West Coast studio in Garden Grove, California. David, what do you think is the most damaging aspect of this video to Planned Parenthood?
You know, I think there's 3 main admissions in the video that are the most significant from their senior director of medical services. The first is that Planned Parenthood is charging per specimen, that's per baby body part, for the fetal tissue harvesting. The second is that they're using illegal partial birth abortions in order to get more intact baby parts for resale. And then the third is that there's knowledge and approval of their fetal tissue supply from the very top levels of the organization on down.
The fact that we all heard this conversation and how casual the tone was, doesn't that hurt Planned Parenthood's credibility, even with supporters?
I think if you look at the comments on the YouTube video, the comments on the different articles, I think you can see that a lot of people are questioning the image that they had of Planned Parenthood before this video came out.
Parenthood claims that it was heavily edited. How do you respond to that?
You know, the original footage of the full conversation has been on our YouTube channel since the very beginning, so everyone's free to look at that and compare the shorter summary that we created that just really shows the highlights.
We haven't seen a whole lot of you in the mainstream media. Have you been approached by news organizations for your side of this story?
Definitely. There was certainly on the first day, it was a little slow for them to pick it up. It took a while for them to come around to the fact that it was a real story, but those requests are definitely starting to pick up as they realize it's a video with 2 million views now, and it's a significant news story.
So we're very curious as to how long this investigation took, and now that you're not undercover anymore, what happens next? We'll talk about that next time with you. David Daleiden, thanks for joining us from our EWTN West Coast studio in Garden Grove, California.
Thanks for having me.
And Congress is investigating the allegations raised in that video. An outspoken voice on the issue is Alabama Representative Martha Roby. She is co-sponsoring a bill to defund Planned Parenthood. Jason Calvi met with her in her office this morning.
You know, it's worth noting that this is also an organization that doesn't believe that a baby is life, yet the organs are fit for harvesting. This is disgusting. Who are we as a country that we've gotten to a point where we can be so callous about babies? And it just struck me, you know, the words that she used when she talked about, you know, having to crush the baby in a specific way in order to preserve the organs. It just is disgusting.
You've called for the investigation. The House, several committees are investigating. Do you think any good can come from these investigations?
We need to be looking at whether or not Planned Parenthood violated the law. I believe that they have, but of course we've got to get to the facts, which is why it's necessary to have this investigation.
But they say this is just reimbursement for transportation.
Then why the variation of cost? Does a baby's liver cost more to transport than a baby's heart or a baby's head? They've got a lot of explaining to do. My understanding is that they had a menu basically for the baby's organs and body parts that were being charged different amounts. That doesn't add up to the cost of transporting these precious babies' organs from place to place. So again, all the more reason for them to have to explain exactly what they're doing.
Very difficult topic. We'll have more, including analysis of the media coverage a little bit later. In the meantime, some of the other stories our EWTN News Nightly team is covering in today's world. Some Republican lawmakers hope to drum up support for a new religious freedom bill. They say it will secure First Amendment protections for those who support traditional marriage based on faith. Wyatt Goolsby reports from the Capitol Rotunda tonight.
Brian, the proposed bill is called the First Amendment Defense Act. Supporters say if it passes, it would actually protect churches, charities, and private schools who oppose redefining marriage from being punished by the government.
It's a bill these GOP lawmakers are hoping to bring to a vote soon. Their goal is to get the First Amendment Defense Act to the floor of the House before the August recess. Today, 5 members of the House joined Senator Mike Lee to explain why.
I do think Americans are overwhelmingly united in their belief that religious freedom needs to be protected and that neither a person nor any group of people ought to be subject to government retaliation based on their religious beliefs, including their religious beliefs about marriage.
Senator Lee says that is in jeopardy since the Supreme Court's landmark decision in June to redefine marriage nationwide. Since then, some supporters have questioned if religious organizations who don't support their view should lose their tax-exempt status. Representative Vicki Hartzler says without this bill, there could be other serious consequences.
Potentially, a Catholic university could be told by the federal government that they have to allow in their student housing, their married student housing, same-sex couples to stay there, and they'd have to change their policies. And the Catholic university, may have other policies that believes in traditional marriage, and the government would say you would have to change that policy or else we're not going to allow your students to receive Pell Grants anymore.
Advocates of the bill say they're trying to build bipartisan support.
There are more than 100 lawmakers who are officially supporting this bill. Right now, they have only one Democrat who is a co-sponsor. Without more widespread support, it's likely getting this passed will be an uphill battle. Brian?
On the Hill, Wyatt Goolsby, thank you. The Vatican's museums and investments helped to nearly double profits at the Vatican city-state last year. The Roman Curia, on the other hand, added about 5% to its budget deficit. This according to final budget figures released today. The Holy See, which governs the Universal Church, paid 126.6 million euros to employ a staff of 2,880 people. The Vatican also reports 21 million euros in contributions from dioceses and 50 million euros from the Vatican Bank. Greece gets a double dose of good news today. The European Central Bank will raise the amount of emergency liquidity available to Greek banks. Also, that country's creditors in the 19-country Eurozone formally said bailout discussions can now begin. The decision comes after the Greek Parliament's overnight passing of austerity measures, but it's subject to other parliamentary votes required in Europe. Wisconsin's Supreme Court hands Republican presidential hopeful Scott Walker a big victory today. It ends an investigation into whether the governor's 2012 recall campaign illegally coordinated with conservative groups. No one has been charged, but questions about the probe have plagued Walker for months. The court's action eliminates a legal headache for Walker, who announced his White House bid last week. Hillary Clinton's standing is falling, even among Democrats. A new AP GFK poll says 7 in 10 Democrats give Clinton positive marks. That's an 11-point drop since April. Nearly a quarter of Democrats now say they see Clinton in an unfavorable light. And for all Americans, Nearly half of those surveyed say they have a negative opinion of Mrs. Clinton. The man accused of killing 9 people at a church in Charleston, South Carolina, stands trial next summer. A judge set the July 11th date for Dylan Roof's trial at a hearing this morning. Roof's public defender will not seek bond. He has not yet entered a plea. Police records from the investigation will not be released to the media at least until next week. This would give prosecutors, defense attorneys, and family members time to object to that release if they so choose. Senator Ted Cruz, one of many Republicans running for president, predicts religious liberty will be a big issue in 2016.
I believe 2016 is going to be a religious liberty election. Hillary Clinton needs to be asked, does she support persecuting the Little Sisters of the Poor? Does she support the federal government trying to fine Catholic nuns millions of dollars?
Cruz demands that every member of Congress from both parties denounce the administration's persecution of the Little Sisters. Molly Hemingway, senior editor of The Federalist, is with us tonight as we continue our coverage on the Planned Parenthood undercover video. So Planned Parenthood in the spotlight after that video is released. What is your take on the media coverage of this story?
Yeah, despite this story being a very exciting one, the media were very reluctant to initially report on it, taking the whole day, even though it was breaking news. They were overly deferential to Planned Parenthood's spin on this, and they've been really incurious about all the different angles they could explore.
Let's look at some of the ways that different media covered it.
Well, like for instance, the Associated Press. This was again a very exciting story where you had an executive from Planned Parenthood talking about crushing bodies and harvesting organs from babies. She was very clear about it. And yet, when AP wrote about it, they called it a fetal transfer policy or something like this. Reuters, they didn't even begin by covering the story. They only covered how this was an attack on Planned Parenthood. They didn't even talk about the actual substance of what we learned on the video. And the New York Times story was just completely, the first 10 paragraphs were just regurgitating spin from Planned Parenthood. They never talked to anyone who was in the video, and it took them more than a day to get the story up. It was just very flawed coverage.
Secular media for years, and certainly in this story, routinely refer to anti-abortion activists. They refuse to say pro-life. Why?
Well, the terminology has been a big problem for many years. Anti-abortion is a double negative term. Pro-choice sounds very friendly and whatnot, but it's just part and parcel of the entire problem with how they cover the story. They never talk about protecting life in the womb. They always talk about women's rights or women's rights issue. And they use euphemisms to discuss the human that is killed in the abortion process.
The tone and the content of this conversation caught on that video is so horrendous. How on earth can anyone put a positive spin on that?
Well, I think that's why we're not seeing very much coverage of this topic, is because there's really no way to play this story in a way that helps out the abortion movement. What Planned Parenthood has been trying to say is that yes, they harvest these organs, but they use them for a good cause, which is a thing we've heard before in the past, and we usually don't think it's okay to sacrifice humans to help other humans.
They don't think it's a baby, and yet they want those complete parts.
Well, until they were talking about hearts, organs, livers,
Babies
lungs.
have hearts and livers. Molly Hemingway with The Federalist, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Coming up, she quit Planned Parenthood after witnessing a horrible abortion and now helps others break out of the industry. And a major network news show profiles the pro-life generation, featuring some familiar faces. On Thursday, July 16th, today we honor Mary under the title of Our Lady of Mount Carmel. For centuries, popular devotion to her has centered on the scapular. Mary herself is said to have given it to St. Simon Stock, an early Carmelite, Our Lady promising salvation to those who wear it faithfully. Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Brian Patrick, and a former Planned Parenthood director hopes that undercover video released this week is a wake-up call to the nation. Abby Johnson directed an abortion clinic in Texas before quitting and has since become a pro-life advocate. Catherine Zeltner asked Johnson if harvesting and selling infant body parts is common in the abortion industry.
I don't know that I would say it's common, but it does certainly happen. It happens primarily at the larger affiliates. So the affiliate where I worked, Planned Parenthood Gulf Coast, we were participatory in fetal harvesting at our affiliate and at our abortion facilities.
What did you think when you saw the video that's now surfaced?
I definitely thought that this is something that we need to further investigate. Planned Parenthood has handled it in their professional PR way that they always do, and so I've been told that there's more videos that will be surfacing, and I would like to see those videos to see, what further evidence we have to show if there is actually something illegal that's going on. I mean, the business of fetal tissue harvesting is gruesome and it's heinous. Unfortunately, it is legal. And that's something that, hopefully our lawmakers will step up and pay attention and decide that, we need to close some of these loopholes that allow for fetal tissue harvesting in the first place.
And Abby, to those who are working in Planned Parenthood and in the abortion industry, what do you want to say to them today?
I want them to know that there is freedom outside of the abortion industry, and that's something that I didn't know I could experience until I actually left, and that my ministry, and Then There Were None, we are here to help those who want to leave. And this may really prick the conscience of some people who are working in abortion referral centers or even abortion clinics that are not participating in fetal tissue harvesting. And, this may be something that they didn't know was happening, and maybe they're not comfortable with it. And we just want to let them know that there is help and there is hope outside of the industry, and we want to help them. And if they want to leave, our website is just simply abortionworker.com.
Thank you, Catherine and Abby Johnson. The shocking conversation captured on the video is raising concerns among some physicians.
As I learned more and watched the video and learned about the method in which they are doing this, which again I think is very clearly a partial birth abortion from the way she describes it, that is illegal in this country, and it's illegal for a reason, because it's inhumane.
Dr. Christian Francis is based in Indiana. She belongs to the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists. The majority of Americans believe abortion is morally wrong, according to a 2010 Marist poll, and it's not only the older generation. ABC News recently highlighted what it calls the pro-life generation, focusing on two young activists, calling them determined and energetic. You're familiar with Lila Rose of Live Action, a frequent guest on EWTN News Nightly, and Kristen Hawkins of Students for Life travels the country mobilizing pro-life college students. The ABC story acknowledged the massive crowds at the March for Life, albeit months after that annual event. Up next, even some Democrats question the nuclear deal with Iran, but not this one. And South Korea hasn't excelled on the ice, but these guys are fighters with a passion for hockey. The church is a mother, like Mary. In her, we have a model. We too must provide a home, like Mary, who did not lord it over the Word of God, but rather welcomed that Word, bore it in her womb, and gave it to others. Inspiring words from the Holy Father's homily in his farewell Mass in Asuncion, Paraguay last Sunday. Thanks for joining us on this Thursday evening. I'm Brian Patrick. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle share concerns about the Iran nuclear agreement. However, House Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi says she is backing the plan.
I've closely examined this document, and it will have my strong support. This agreement is precisely about intensifying our vigilance over every aspect of the Iranian nuclear program. We have no illusions about Iran. President Reagan said trust and verify. In this case, I would say distrust and verify.
Congress has 60 days now to review and take a vote on the deal. It would curb Iran's nuclear program in exchange for billions of dollars in sanctions relief. We appreciate Fred Fleitz joining us from the Center for Security Policy. President Obama, a very good salesman, put out his pitch yesterday on this deal. You just heard Pelosi. Do you think that this deal is the only way to avoid war with Iran, as the president states?
Brian, it's good to be here. First, let me tell you, this is a terrible deal that will allow Iran to actually improve its nuclear program. It increases the chances of nuclear weapons during the deal, since Iran will be enriching uranium and developing advanced centrifuges to make uranium fuel. What the president said is frankly false. The alternative to this deal is sticking where we are with tough sanctions and waiting for a president who will put in a real policy to stop Iran's pursuit of terrorism, destabilizing the Middle East and its nuclear program.
There are so many questions surrounding this. One of them is, why aren't the hostages that are held in Iran included in this deal? They were never even brought up, I don't think.
They weren't included because the president said this was only about nuclear weapons. Well, this is a man named Qasem Soleimani. He is the head of the Iranian Quds Force. He's a terrorist designated by the Treasury Department. In this deal, sanctions will be lifted against him. So this guy gets relieved of sanctions for being a terrorist. This guy sent IEDs into Iraq that killed American soldiers. But our 4 Americans who are innocent being held prisoner in Iran, they're still rotting away in Iranian prisons.
Nancy Pelosi aside, there are plenty in Congress who are not going to sign on to this deal. What do you think the Senate and House will do with this? They have 60 days.
There's growing bipartisan opposition to this deal. The problem is there has to be a veto-proof majority to pass a resolution of disapproval.
The president already said he would veto.
I think he's going to veto it. It's going to be hard, but I got to tell you, there is this is not a partisan issue. There's strong bipartisan opposition to a deal that will hurt U.S. national security.
All right. Fred Fleitz with the Center for Security Policy. Always great to have you with us.
Good to be here.
See you on O'Reilly tonight. Canadians, Americans, and even Russians dominate hockey, but some Asians are now taking to the ice. Nyberg, Morin, Martinet, names you'd expect to see at a professional ice hockey training camp. Kim or An, names usually found at a speed skating trial until now.
Yeah, it was like amazing experience for us. Yeah, and I think nice to be here.
The National Hockey League's Dallas Stars invited 3 South Korean players to its development squad. Wonjun Kim is a defenseman.
I think this give us to a lot of confidence and improve our skills.
Their coach, Jim Pake, a 2-time Stanley Cup winner with the Pittsburgh Penguins, is trying to get them ready for the 2018 Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang, South Korea. So he asked the Dallas Stars for a favor.
He gave me a call and said, you know what, I got 3 kids I'd like to bring to camp. They need to get the experience. They need to, learn what it takes to make the next step.
Across the NHL, there's been a push to cultivate Asian talent.
They're great kids. Great people off the ice, but on the ice, they've been as good as everybody else and played very well.
By their own accounts, hockey barely rates at home.
엄청 없어요.
He says absolutely not. It's not there.
Soccer, speed skating, and golf command national attention, but hockey seemed to come naturally to these players.
So his elementary teacher used to be a hockey manager, and he used to get in fights all the time in elementary school. So his teacher was like, if you're going to get in fights, then just play hockey. So that's how he got started.
They all play in the Asian League in South Korea and for their national team. Their goal, be competitive against giants like Canada, Russia, and the USA in 2018. South Korea has never qualified for the Winter Olympic tournament.
I believe someday we can play in the top division league. So, yeah, that is my hope.
Kim, Park, and An, hoping to be fixtures among hockey's elite rather than just guests. And to repeat our top story tonight, in what is being called an act of domestic terrorism, 4 Marines have been killed in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The suspect, a 24-year-old man believed born in Kuwait, has also been shot dead. We'll have more follow-up to this analysis and reaction tomorrow on EWTN News Nightly. We thank you for joining us tonight. Until tomorrow, you can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, watch again on EWTN's YouTube page. For the EWTN News Nightly team in Washington, D.C., I'm Brian Patrick. Good night and God bless.